Alright, boils and ghouls. Feels good to be doing a review slash discussion slash whatever the hell my stuff is. It's been a while. It's been like 2 weeks. For people new to the channel, it happens. Whatever I'm particularly into hardcore for a week or so, that's what's going to be the content coming on the channel. If I'm in a music mood, going to be mostly music stuff. But there's always going to be horror. I can't go a few days without talking about horror. So The Strangers, Pray at Night from 2018. Now, this is a direct sequel to The First Strangers. I did a video on the first one, so if you want to hear my thoughts on that, go check it out. I like The First Strangers. I think it's a very effective film. I think the pacing suffers a bit for me. That's what brings that film down a decent amount for me. Plus, yeah, it's Liv Tyler. She's gorgeous, but honestly, I never thought she was anything great of an actress. So that brings it down too for me. But it is a very effective, it's probably the home invasion film. When people think of home invasion movies, The Strangers is the first thing to come to mind. Now I'm going to do like a spoiler-free review right after this on Strangers Chapter 1. We'll talk a little about that film. I mean, I don't know what to say about it or what to think about it because it's basically a carbon copy of the original Strangers. But we'll get to that in that review. Let's talk Pray at Night, which I prefer this movie in almost every way to the original. And that's saying something because of how great the original is. Mostly it has to do with a few scenes and shots in this film that is just so creative, the way it was shot, and the sound design in this film. The sound design is spectacular in this movie. Again, particularly in a certain scene, which is my favorite scene in this entire series so far. You know, fuck it. Let's just throw The Strangers Chapter 1 talk into this video. Because I don't know, I don't have much to say about it in its own little spoiler-free thing. There was nothing good in that film that stuck out to me, that was creative, that was new. I don't know how they're making 2 more films and putting them out this year. For what? Like, I don't get why they're doing this. The Strangers, the characters themselves, I forget their name, Sackhead. It's not Sackhead, right? It's Baghead or something. The Sackhead's way too Jason. And then we got Pinup Girl, and we have Dollface, right? They're the reason that the original movie even got a sequel. And the only reason that we're getting these 3 chapters. Now, their names are The Strangers. The more that we see The Strangers on screen, they're not strangers anymore. Now we know a lot about them. We still don't really know why they do these things that they do and break into homes and kill people, besides that they're crazy. And yeah, that's all you really have to know. But we're being way too overexposed to the Strangers, to the point now that we know them better than any of the other characters in this entire series. Which is one reason, and a major reason, I think that this franchise shouldn't be a franchise. These are one of these films, like, I'm fine with Pray at Night here. It should have been these 2 movies, and that's pretty much all you can do with this whole premise. Unless there's something really creative they have planned for Chapter 2 and 3. But honestly, Chapter 1 was almost beat for beat, like the original. And I know Bertino wrote the story. He didn't direct it, he didn't write screenplay, but he did the story. So I wonder how much of that is just referring to him writing the story of the original and them using so much of it in Chapter 1. Same exact thing. Couple goes and stays at a Airbnb because their car has trouble. Instead of being in, what was it, the main character's family home in the first movie. That's the only difference. The same exact story, basically. Nothing new, nothing creative, nothing out of the box. No reason to exist. This first chapter. So again, unless they do something special and very out the box and creative, this is what I would want to see. And yeah, initially you're going to think immediately, you're next. with Erin, who's my favorite final girl in a horror film, and how she just annihilates all the people that break into the house in You're Next. That's what I would like to see from a Stranger sequel. Have them break into the wrong house. Have them break into some place that they think, yeah, this is just another murder. We got this. We've done this who knows how many times. We've only seen it on film twice before these 3 chapters. Is it the first time? We know from the first movie that it's one of their first times. Because I'm pretty sure Dollface is the one who says it to Pinup Girl. After they get the flyer, she gets into the Ford truck that they're in when they're driving away. And she says, don't worry, it gets easier, or something like that. She's saying it to Pinup Girl. So I always took that last line in the first movie that it was Pinup Girl's first time doing this with them. Unfortunately, it seemed like she only got one other chance that her ass got murdered in this. And they kind of stuck to that because the Pinup Girl in Chapter 1 looks different. Like, I mean, she's wearing the same mask, but it looks like Pinup Girl could be a guy in Chapter 1 because he has this whole, like, hood up with the mask, so it, like, covers any type of hair. It's a different look to Pinup Girl in these first 2 movies. But can I recommend Strangers Chapter 1? No. Unless you're a huge fan of this series and you're fine with just seeing the same stuff that you've seen already all over again, just executed much more poorly, it's the only people I can recommend Chapter 1 to. Let's get into the better movie, Strangers Prey at Night. It's different from the original, so I could see why people prefer the original film. This I've heard described by many people, and I don't disagree with it, that this is more of a slasher flick. Now, we still have a home invasion here. It's not a home. It's not their home. They're going to drop the daughter off to boarding school. So we got a family this time. We got the parents. Christina Hendricks, right, from Mad Men, plays the mother. We got Noah from The Ring, who plays the father. Then the son and daughter, I have no idea what their names are. But they all give good performances in this, just like the first movie. Now, I didn't look into it. I'm pretty sure all 3 of the strangers were portrayed by different actors and actresses in this movie than the original. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that for Pinup Girl and Dollface, but I know Baghead was played by Damien Maffei in this movie, and he's a great bad guy in films. He was in Haunt from 2019. He's been in a few things, and I think he's the best bagman that I've seen so far out of these 3 movies. Just the way he moves, his mannerisms, I think it's a lot more creepy and intimidating than in the original Strangers. A lot of that could be that we see a little bit more of the strangers in this movie, but I'm going to stick with it. I mean, Damien Maffei just kills it as Bagman in this. So I have a short opening scene, and this is where I can see people's, claims that they think of this as more of a slasher film. Because we don't see the kills here, but there's a, middle-aged couple, older couple living in this trailer park, and we just see Dollface lay down next to the husband in bed, and it cuts to the title card. So, kills the 2 of them. Now, I haven't watched this in maybe a year, maybe a little less, but just having these 2 characters in the beginning here, unless it factors in later, or unless I'm thinking of You're Next, when they kill the neighbors and they run there and they find the bodies, I think I'm thinking of You're Next. So I don't think that plays into anything, the very beginning, just to show them stalking and presumably killing these old people. But then we're introduced to the family. Kinsey is the younger girl. So they're sending her away to boarding school. They don't really say what she's been doing. I think they say at one point to mom when she's having a little conversation saying that, oh, you shouldn't be smoking pot, or something like that, something stupid that they're sending this woman off to boarding school. And then they got the brother Luke. Fuck if I know the parents' names. The Man in the Mask. That's what Baghead is actually called. It was killing me, so I had to look it up. They call him the Man in the Mask. Makes sense. Now, going back to pinup girl, right? It's going to get so confusing. Pinup girl. If my interpretation of the ending of the first movie is right, and that was her first time killing, or at least killing with these other two. I mean, who knows what she did beforehand? I'm to take this that this is her second time. And she ends up getting murdered later, as I said. So did she only do this twice? Or were there a whole bunch of murders that these strangers have committed that we just didn't see put to film? Now let me also specify, even though I like this movie much more than the first film, and I really liked the first film, these still aren't movies that I love. Like, I don't often go back, especially the first one, and watch The Strangers. The only reason I rewatched it a few months back was to do a video on it. And I was going to do Pray at Night right after that, but you guys know how it goes. I also have to do Sinister 2. Sinister, that video was like 3-4 months old also. I think it was right around The Strangers. So for some reason, Pray at Night and Sinister 2 didn't want to get talked about back then. So they end up leaving their home and they go to this trailer park that I guess, I don't know if they say it, they hang out there every now and then. It's like a little getaway they've known for years. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So they go to this trailer park, and this is when the strangers start to fuck with them. Okay, so they don't say exactly why they are sending Kinsey off to boarding school. I thought for a second it was maybe during this little conversation, they stop at a diner, and she goes out for a cigarette, and then the mom follows her out. And this is where I thought they might have said, but they don't. The mom just says, the past year what you've been doing, like, we're worried about you. So they don't state exactly what she's done. I can't imagine it being that bad that they got to send this girl to boarding school. The only reason you should be sending a kid to boarding school, I mean, if they're that out of control, or if they're borderline sociopaths, psychopaths, they're trying to kill people, they're hurting people. She's just whoring herself out, having fun or something, or she's smoking pot and experimenting. There's no better time to do that than your teenage years, your 20s, because what are you going to fuck up that badly? Nothing. Better than your 40s, 50s, when you got mortgages, when you got a family to provide for. That's when you don't want those issues. Get it out of the way early. Unless, like I said, unless she's some type of psychopath. But it doesn't seem that way at all. The way that she's portrayed in this movie, she seems just like a normal teenage girl who's just trying to deal with being a teenager, basically. Another thing I much prefer in this film to the original, as far as I can remember, I know I keep saying that, but it's been a bit, they're a lot more believable and like human-like, the way they should be, the strangers in this film. In the first film, I called out a lot of instances of bullshit, especially when, whatever his name is, the boyfriend, goes out to his car, and then one of them flicks the back of his neck and he turns around in an instant, they're gone. They're like ghosts in the first movie. This one, from all accounts that I can remember, you don't see much of that. They're like actual human beings, and that's what they're supposed to be, right? These are human beings with masks on. And then, of course, after they settle into this trailer, it's like their little stopping point, I guess, for the night until they continue on to take her to boarding school. So again, I don't know if they have a special link with this place, if they've been there before, or if they're just stopping here. But I don't know about stopping at a trailer park. Like, usually you go to a hotel. It doesn't matter. But they end up stopping there. And then we get the famous line again, which you really can't use this line anymore. And they did in chapter 1. There's Tamara home. Now I get it. This could just be their thing. Every time the strangers do this, that's how they started off. They think it's a creepy line. That's fine for the strangers' line of work. But for viewers like us, at least for me, even the second time hearing that same line, it just feels lazy. And then hearing it again in chapter 1, that felt even more lazy. It's like these people have to think of something better or something equally as creepy, not just using the success of how creepy the line was the first time. The same with the ending of the first movie, with the reason that they do this. And they said, because you were home. Almost identical in chapter 1, 2. Like, I'm really curious where they're going with chapter 2 and 3, because they have to change it up. Then this whole plan of theirs, it's Dollface, right? You can tell by the hair. When she comes up, and she usually unscrews the light bulb. Smart. That way, if they go to turn the porch light on, can't see her face. But how do I know if someone doesn't answer? They have a flashlight on, or they shine a light in the person's face because they think it's weird that their light isn't working. Their whole plan could be foiled very easily, and they can easily find out who this person is. Like I said, you shine a light in their face. You got a creepy-ass girl coming up to your house asking some bitch that you've never heard of home. And then she comes back again and does the same thing. And you don't think that this is weird? I mean, they do comment on how weird it is. But then they just seem to brush it off in both of these movies. Okay, apologies. The opening couple who get killed, it's Luke and Kinsey's aunt and uncle. Because the two of them go, leaving their trailer and they go exploring. They go to their aunt and uncle's trailer and they find the bodies. So that's how it all ties in. Another reason I think this movie works more than the original for me is because more happens. There's more going on. And again, I can see that leading credence to people who say it's more like a slasher film. I pretty much agree. But more happens, and it's more exciting for me than the original. Even though it's very tense, the original, it builds up that dreadful atmosphere, and it does it in a phenomenal way. I just prefer what happens in this film. So then they come back and they say that they found their aunt and uncle's bodies. And then we find out that Dollface, or one of them, smashed all their phones up, just like in the first movie. And what I really like with this movie, that they kept in the same vein with the first one, all the kills are very brutally shot. Like, even if they're not crazy kills, they're all just stabbings and stuff for the most part. But the way they're shot, you really feel those stabbings. Like when Kinsey's trying to escape with her mom, and her mom basically, gives her life to save her daughter, and has her daughter escape, and she gets stabbed by the man in the mask.
It wasn't.
That looks brutal, and you feel that mom getting stabbed, and you feel the emotional impact of it on Kinsey. Did a great job of filming all the kill scenes in this movie. I also really like the dynamic between Luke and Kinsey here, the brother-sister relationship. I thought there was good chemistry between the actor and actress. I really believe that they're brother and sister in this. Like, they did a very good job. But one thing, I don't care if it's a family member, anybody, one thing you never do. You don't take someone's cigarette out their mouth and throw it on the ground. Are you kidding me? That's the way you get killed. Don't ever do some shit like that. And so far, the only evidence to how bad of a girl this is, I think she's like 15, 16, is she's smoking cigarettes and pot now and then. Is that all she's doing, that they're sending her to boarding school? Is there even a boarding school anymore nowadays? I've never met somebody sent to boarding school. Does that still happen? Somebody let me know if they know the answer to this random question that has nothing to do with. Now, I never talk politics on this channel. One, just because we know where it leads. Any conversation about it, it's a fucking shit show that breaks out. But more importantly, I don't care. Like, I think all politicians, all the elite, all these tech owners, pharmaceutical companies, this company was bought and sold decades ago. And we've just been hanging out at last call for the next few decades until this whole country crumbles. My take on it. The only reason I bring that subject up right now is this is why we all have the constitutional right to bear arms. Just for situations like this. And they don't take advantage of it right away. I mean, these people have guns. They have a shotgun in the first movie. They have a shotgun in chapter 1. They have a gun here. I mean, you got people lurking and stalking you. All lurking around your home. Then they break in and they start fucking murdering your family. So the fact that they don't instantly just shoot these people in the face when they have the chance, It really aggravates me in all these films. But there's a scene when Luke is pointing the gun at whatever, one of the girls, I think it's Dollface, and he says, put the knife down. And then she drops the knife. Are you serious? Just shoot this bitch in the face. She already killed your mom at that point. That's an end game for me. That's a deal breaker. You're getting shot in the face immediately. There's no drop the knife. There's no turn around slowly or anything like that. It's just kaboom. But that's just me, I guess. Another thing with the Stranger's whole master plan that they pull off in these two movies. It is effective. It's creepy. Like going into a house or your house and seeing hello and stuff written all over the window. It's creepy, sure. But just the mental image it gives me of one of them running into that room real quick and writing hello like 100 times on a window and then just sneaking away. I don't know, the mental image it gives me, it's hard to take seriously. It's Dollface who stabs and kills the mom, by the way. It's not Man in the Mask. I really like the whole chase sequence with Dollface and Kinsey. I think it's shot really well. I think it's very tense. And then we have Luke and Noah from The Ring, the father. Always forget that guy's name, the actor. It's very, very impactful and shot brutally how he's killed too. This is the second time in a row that they use a car to crash into a car when they're trying to leave. And he gets impaled with something, the father. And there's some heartbreaking dialogue there with him saying, just go get your sister. And like, she needs you. All of that works well for me. And it's pretty much a big gut punch. Oh, this is something I almost forgot. I like when movies utilize this effect most of the time. Now, it depends on the film, depends on the tone of the movie, but most of the time I like seeing this. Before the father gets killed, when Luke and Daddy go into the bathroom and they see the mom's dead body, and then he says, run to the car, or etc. The way that they have the sound drop out, I love that. Like, anytime in a movie, like I said, if it works, which it most of the time does, that a character sees something super traumatic in front of them, and they utilize sound dropping out to show how traumatic it is, and that they're not even really there, they're in shock. I love that effect. I love that directors utilize that to show what they're thinking and observing at that exact moment, and we get that with the son here, with Luke. He sees his mom, and the sound drops out and he is in shock. And I think all that's done great in this. And I'm pretty sure I said this in my video for the original. For people that are trying to not get caught and are trying to murder people, these people make a lot of goddamn noise and they draw big attention to them. They're lighting fires. They're crashing cars into other cars. I mean, sure, they're in pretty much the middle of nowhere. I think this is the more public place, and it's still like very desolate compared to the 3 movies we got so far. They're a lot more remote in the first one and in chapter 1. But still, you'd think someone would hear a car being like brutally rammed into another car. Someone would pass by and see a fire brewing. Like, none of that. So these people really don't care if they get caught or not. We get some really cool and creepy close-up shots of Pinup Girl's mask. That's effective. And then, this is why Damien Maffei is my favorite Man in the Mask so far. When he gets in the car with Noah, and yeah, this is going all over the place, back and forth. A lot of it I'm going off memory, then I'm browsing through it. But when he's in the car, he gets in after he tells Luke to go find his sister. The Man in the Mask just gets in the car, and I love how he dials the radio to a working station so that there's music on, which is something this series uses mostly to great effect, is the music. Like, there's heavy emphasis on songs being played in this series. Like in the first movie with the record that skips when, like, the actual shit really starts going down when they're breaking into the house. That's excellently done. Then we got my favorite scene in the movie coming up, where it's the best use of that in this entire series, in my opinion. But the way the Man in the Mask, his mannerisms and the way he looks and turns and just looks at the father, and he's begging for his life, and he just is emotionless. You could see his eyes moving, but you can tell this guy doesn't give a shit about any of these people. He is just a cold-blooded killer. And again, that stabbing to him, to the father, is very impactful. Yeah, this dumb shit from Luke. He's with Kinsey and Dollface shows up with the knife, and he's pointing the gun, put it down. And I like how Kinsey is saying, give me the gun, Luke, I'll fucking shoot her. That's how you gotta be. Kinsey don't need to go to boarding school. She needs to stay at home and protect this goddamn family. So, of course, Luke tells Kinsey to hide, and he's going to try to call the police, find a landline, because, of course, the best thing to do in this situation is split up and not have power numbers or anything like that. So, he ends up going, and again, great sound design here with it sounds like green sleeves that's being played through like on a music box, and it repeats kind of like the skipping of the record in the first movie, so it's a little derivative, but it is different enough. And this brings us to my favorite scene in this series. First off, and yeah, I know it's gonna sound weird to some, I think Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart is one of the greatest compositions ever written. That song is a beautiful song. The instruments, her singing, everything. Now, Urban Legend, of course, famously used it in the intro. Now, unless Bertino or the director of this, Johann, whatever, unless they came out and said that this was an intentional callback or an homage or a riff to Urban Legend, just because a movie uses a song that was used in another movie in a popular way doesn't mean that they're ripping it off or they're riffing on it or anything like that. I've read that a few times, that this scene is a riff on Urban Legend. Like I said, unless they came out and said it directly, I don't think so at all. I think it was a great artistic choice. Now, everything in this scene is excellent. Everything is shot so well. Everything is lit with the colored trees around the pool, with the lights on them. The color looks fantastic in this, and this is the scene that it's so stylish. But the thing in this scene that stands out to me the most is the phenomenal sound design. The sound design is so goddamn good in this scene. We have Luke at the pool, and then Total Eclipse of the Heart comes on. Again, you can't pick a better song for this scene. And then Pinup Girl, almost lost the name. She comes up and tries killing him, and Luke ends up killing her. So this was her, as I say, second job. She wasn't cut out for this crew, because she gets killed very easily here. Stabs the shit out of her. And then even the sound design of the Man in the Mask dragging the axe very slowly on the pavement, that was recorded excellently too. And then I love Luke's line,
I killed one of yours! How's that feel, huh? How's that fucking feel?
Basically taunting the Man in the Mask, which is probably a bad idea. But the sound design here really shines after he takes a few swings at Luke, and then they fall into the pool. And you hear Total Eclipse of the Heart playing when they're above water, and then they go underwater a few times, struggling, and you hear it muffled out like you're underwater, and it goes back and forth like that. Excellent. Like, that really, really was done so well to me. And every time I watch this scene, I don't take my eyes off of it. I think this is a pretty close to perfect scene, which is not something I'd usually say about anything in the Strangers movies. But if you haven't seen this movie and you haven't seen this scene, definitely check out the entire scene on YouTube. And the choreography's pretty decent for this scene too. And I wonder how many of those shots Damien Maffei was using an actual axe. Gotta ask him that. Because there's definitely certain scenes in here that he's using an actual axe. You can tell by the weight of it, and you can tell when he hits the edge of the pool. I mean, unless that's just more testament to the excellent sound design, That sounds like a real axe hitting cement. And then probably my favorite shot in this whole scene, when it's being shot from back here and you're seeing the man in the mask right behind Luke as he's trying to get out of the water, and he grabs him and he stabs him through the back. What a great shot that is. And then Man in the Mask just walks out, and that's what I mean with the mannerisms by Maffei in here. I think he did so much better than, not to discredit the guy who played him in the first movie. He did great. I just love the mannerisms here in this movie. And that stabbing is fucking brutal looking. Like I said, all the kills are very effective. But again, going back to how proficient these strangers are at killing, he just left him there to bleed out, but he didn't expect the sister to come and, rescue him. So, why he didn't just stab this guy multiple times, slit his throat, make sure he's actually dead? I don't know. Maybe he just thought, even if he's not, I'll come back, he'll bleed out, or I'll finish him off after I get the girl. Whatever, I'm thinking too much into it as always. But my point, he should have stabbed the shit out of this kid. Because then Kinsey comes and pulls him out of the water. And again, with the sound design at the end of that scene, with him just starting to drown and lose consciousness and fall under the water, and the music, again, how you can hear it muffled. Yeah, if The Strangers Chapter 1 didn't just come out and I didn't watch it and then plan on doing, a little review on it, which now is not going to happen since I talked about it enough, this scene is the whole reason I throw this movie on. As often as I do, which is, like I said, not too often, but often enough, and it's for this scene. I've mentioned a few of my favorite scenes from the 2010s, one being The Guest, the bar fight scene, and the shootout scene are phenomenal. Cabin in the Woods, when she lets all the creatures out of the elevator, that's another one. I'm not saying it's maybe one of the best, but it's one of the most memorable scenes for me from the 2010s in a horror film. Just because of the style of it, and the way it's shot, and the sound design especially. I can go on and on with this scene. See, Dollface, she has no problem instantly slitting this cop's throat. Kinsey shows up on the road, and she sees a patrolman, or a sheriff, whatever it is. He gets out, and Dollface instantly kills this guy. So why didn't Man in the Mask brutally just stab the shit out of Luke? Just for the plot, of course. This is why Kinsey is a badass. She kills friggin' Dollface too, and with no hesitation shoots this girl with the shotgun, and then we get to see her face, and then we get a little bit of a change from the reason at the end of the first movie. First movie was because you were home. This is why not. Whatever, it's different enough. Like I said, with these next two movies after Chapter 1, they better have some good answer in there, or just not even address it at all. Don't even reuse any of that. Don't have them ask why. Don't have them give a sarcastic reason or a vague reason that has nothing to do with anything. Just don't even address it, because it's getting very old now. And then she blows her head off. She just shoots this woman in the head. But yet, somehow, she's alive later. Kinsey has her little showdown with the Man in the Mask. There's gasoline dripping, because they were both in a car. He's in his truck. Gasoline's dripping everywhere. She lights a match. This fucker is dead. I don't care what anyone says. Does he wear that, protective gel that stuntmen use when they get lit on fire at all times, just in case, while doing this, someone does try to light him on fire? That's the only thing I can think of, because he's sitting right in the front seat. He don't have time to get out or anything, and he doesn't. He just keeps driving after her with his truck just ablaze. There's no way this guy is not in excruciating pain, if not burning to a crisp right at this moment. We get a little Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque ending here with Man in the Mask after she flags down another car, and after they see the Man in the Mask of this crazy ass guy, they run back into the car, and she ends up hopping in the back, and Man in the Mask is hanging off for dear life. She takes a bat, smashes the shit out of his head, and he falls off the truck. Supposedly he's dead. But then you see her, like, a shot of her in the back of the truck. It reminded me of Texas Chainsaw. Yeah, so the ending is fucking dumb for this movie. It's not great at all. This is why they knew that they had to go the prequel route with these 3 chapters, because there's no way they're bringing these people back to life. She's in the hospital with Luke, so the 2 of them survive, and then she hears a knock at the door. She drops her drink, and she hears a hello, a very familiar hello from behind the door. Now, I'm just going to assume that's a nurse or some shit, and it just scares her, and it's a stupid, not a jump scare, but a stupid ending. It's a dumb ending, because we saw Dollface get shot in the face, like point blank. She's dead. We saw Pinup Girl gets stabbed a dozen times, maybe, by Luke. She's deader than dead. And the man in the mask, I'm pretty sure, does not sound like that. So I'm just going to go with it's her being paranoid after everything she's gone through, which, boarding school, this woman needs a lot more help. Now, after the events of this movie, are you kidding me? But that's The Strangers Prey at Night 2018. It's a fun one. Besides from that one scene, it does drag here and there, which is a similar issue I have with the first one. But I think this one's more entertaining overall. If you haven't seen Chapter 1, don't bother, unless you're a big fan, like I said, of this whole franchise. Alright guys, hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. But it almost looks like it could be a male under there. She's getting sent away to boarding school because she's been a bad girl. She's going away to boarding school because she's been a bitch. They're like a ghost.